Welcome to the Trader a Traitors podcast. I'm Matthew, a writer working in unscripted TV development, and this podcast is usually dedicated to covering different countries' versions of The Traitors. However, while we are waiting on the next season of that show, we've recently covered Netflix's Million Dollar Secret and are now covering the UK version of Genius Game on ITV and hosted by David Tennant. To help me recap the episodes and analyse the gameplay, or lack of gameplay, is reality TV guru and my regular co-host, David Bloomberg.
Hello, how are you?
Yes, pretty good. We're doing this, closer to the actual day of the
I
airing than last time.
I was so confused when my app that tells me what shows are on was like, "There's a new episode of Genius Game." I'm like, "What are you talking about? That was just on 2 days ago." I'm like, "Oh no, we just did the podcast a day ago. That's different."
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Uh, so
Uh, so we're kind of back to a more normal schedule. David, in case people are joining us for episode five for some, or six for some reason, and don't know who you are, tell us who you are.
well, for anyone who doesn't know me, I have been covering reality TV for 25 years. Actually, as we're recording this, the very first episode ever of Survivor aired 25
Hey,
years ago today.
wow.
Uh, and so I've been doing this from newspaper columns to online to websites to podcasts, you name it. And in addition, nowadays I also post reality TV videos on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as at David Bloomberg TV. And I'll talk about it wherever you find me.
That's 25 years of Survivor. That's pretty
Yes.
impressive. I guess around that time, so the year 2000, in the UK anyway, there was this sort of surge of like reality TV was essentially a new thing.
Oh, yeah.
Big Brother started in the UK in 2000, I believe. We had Pop Idol, which became American Idol in the States. I think was 2000 as well, maybe
Hmm.
2001. And I guess without those shows, we wouldn't have worked our way to the. I don't imagine the Traitors would exist without shows like Survivor.
No, no. And certainly the Traders US casts would not exist without
That
without Survivor.
is a very good point. Yes.
And I did want to let you know also. And see, if we were doing our normal thing of lying to each other, this would have been perfect because there's no way you would believe what I'm about to tell you. So I'm watching this new show on Netflix called Department Q,
Oh, okay.
which takes place in Scotland.
Oh.
And I'm sitting there watching, and there's a, a kid who has suffered trauma, and he
Hmm.
basically doesn't talk, but he watches TV. And we get a flash to him sitting in his room watching TV, and it's UK Survivor. He's watching UK Survivor. They have found something they can do with UK Survivor. They can put it as the background show that is on another show.
Wow. Is it set in that 2000s?
Well, it
Or
must be. I mean,
yeah.
no, 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 no. UK Survivor, the most recent
Oh, the
UK
recent one.
Survivor.
Oh, so it's
Yeah,
yeah, like sort of contemporary.
yeah,
Okay, okay. Yeah. Hey, it's living an extra life.
yeah.
Department Q. Okay, I'll have to check that out. I have not heard of
Mhm.
this. So before we move ahead with episode six of Genius Game UK, we had an email from Kevin about a couple of things, but something he noticed in episode five that maybe we didn't mention. So Kevin says, on your most recent podcast about episode five, I don't think you mentioned that Indy was choosing between Ben and Allison for the death match because Charlotte suggested she choose Ben because he might crumble under the pressure. I think
Mm.
that was Charlotte's words. And Kevin says, I heard an interview with Indy where she said she was going to choose Allison and wasn't even considering Ben until Charlotte suggested it, but in the end decided not to go with Ben because of their alliance. The interviewer hinted that Charlotte probably said that because it's good for her if a strong rival in Ben gets taken out, but I think she had a point. And Kevin says, we saw previously that Allison is not only very calm under pressure and good at memory tasks, which may be important in this episode, but also good at psyching out her opponent in her deathmatch with Scott. And that'll prove to be the case in her deathmatch with Indy. So, uh, yeah, I maybe I hadn't paid attention to that, and maybe Indy should have picked Ben, although as it turns out, Ben
Mm,
pretty good at death matches anyway.
yes, yes, yeah. Um, yeah, I don't think under any circumstance she should have picked Ben. I think Allison was the way to go. And I'll just jump into this because I'm sure you're going to mention it. You're going to mention the preview. But in the
Yeah, yeah.
preview, you probably wouldn't have gone into this detail. I have a bone to pick with whoever wrote David Tennant's script here because he says Indy's choice of opponent in the death match was a big mistake. No, that was not the problem. Her problem was not her choice of opponent.
Hmm.
As we discussed in the episode 5 podcast, she made mistakes during that match.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was the issue. So, summarizing it to say her choice of opponent in the death match was a big mistake. No, sorry, David Tennant's scriptwriter, you're wrong.
Yeah, I had that. That didn't register with me, but yeah, I think Indy just sort of crumbled under the pressure. She made a mistake. She panicked.
Mm-hmm.
At least one mistake. Yeah, yeah, I think that's fair to say. So I think we are ready to move ahead with episode 6, which, spoiler alert, I enjoyed more than I enjoyed episode 5. Last week I wasn't
I
quite so
mean,
positive.
I thought you said episode 5 was the worst of all of them for you, so that's good.
Yeah.
Uh, so yes, it was definitely more enjoyable.
Yes, and we haven't really talked about it off air, so I
No.
am going to be finding out what you thought of it as well, David. Here we go, episode 6 of Genius Game UK. Our recap begins as we're reminded that Safari Race was the game, the main match in the previous episode, which, yes, I complained a little bit about. I thought it was very dull to watch. Not just me, a few people on YouTube have also commented agreeing. The players were split into two groups, with Ken's group taking the lead from the get-go. Bedalia won the game, gave Bex his token of life, and chose Indy as the deathmatch candidate, which we've just been talking about. Uh,
Bedalia won the
yeah,
game.
well, but yeah, Bedalia
Big,
sort of
big air quotes for those who
technically
aren't
won.
watching the video.
Yeah. Through no real strategy of his own. Uh, Ken made Bedalia win. And Indy then chose Allison as her opponent, of course, who then proceeded to beat her and send her home. So here we go, episode 6. We've got our arrivals. Ken and Charlotte arrive first. I'm pretty sure they've maybe done this deliberately to give them a chance to talk because yesterday there was not tension between them, but Charlotte was
Hmm.
annoyed. She wanted Ken to work with her, and he didn't do it, and she was sort of provoking him a little bit about it. So I wondered if they put those two in together to see if something would come of it. I think they're both just too nice though, and so there was no drama here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also, I have to mention this, and I've mentioned Ben's videos before.
Yeah.
It turns out that when those two went in, they didn't realize quite how short Charlotte's skirt was till she got onto set, and then they had to like pause things and figure out a way to fix the problem.
Okay.
So,
Poor Charlotte. Uh, so next up, Ben and Allison arrive. Allison's feeling pretty confident after her second deathmatch victory. And at this point, I thought, oh, it's less likely people are going to choose her now. But I guess that's
I
not.
think she thought the same thing.
Yeah. Bedalia and Bex arrive last. A genius combo if ever I saw one. Bedalia and
Hmm.
Bex, yes, last to arrive to the genius game.
Yes.
So,
Did they
Charlotte,
even know they were there after they had arrived? That's the real question.
who knows? And there are many points throughout this episode where I feel like Bex does not. I don't want to
Yeah,
say too
if let me
much.
just say right now, Bex, if you're listening to this, just stop now. Just
Yeah,
don't do that to yourself. Nothing good will come of it. Just turn it off right now.
yeah. Very nice person, but player of Genius Game, I'm not sure
Yeah.
what happened there. So, Charlotte tells us, she's desperate to win the show and she's desperate to win the game today. A bit of sort of False foreshadowing.
Hmm.
David Tennant comes on screen, gives us our, well, I was going to say he gives us our league table. He actually doesn't give us that much information. All it seems to show us is that they've collected 32 garnets together, meaning there's £32,000
Hmm.
in the prize pot. He doesn't run through which player has what.
Oh,
That's
I
happened
don't think he has
before.
for a couple of episodes.
Yeah, early on that was happening, and now
I
I don't
think
know if it's because it doesn't really matter.
I think that's the exact reason. I think it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, which is, and maybe I'll come to this later. Again, Kevin, who sent the email that I mentioned a few
Hmm.
minutes ago, mentioned something else about Korean Genius Game that makes an interesting comparison. So yeah, I think the players just this set of players haven't used the garnets as much as they could have, or were kind of supposed to. Like they're supposed to use them to barter and sway one another's decisions, and we've seen it once or twice early on, and it just seems to have stopped. So yeah,
Bex tried this time, as we'll get to. She
mm,
tried,
yeah.
and Ben just was like, no.
Yeah, yeah. So we move straight to the main match. It's called Diamond Dilemma. David explains, David Tennant. The players will be, I have to just clarify that. The players will be divided at random into a red team and a white team, 3 players each. Each player is then given 10 diamonds stored in personal lockers in the dealer room. There will be 5 rounds in total, that can't change. At the end of each round, the players will enter the dealer room one by one and may take any amount of diamonds from their own locker and place it in a communal jar. The team who puts the most in for each round wins a point, which on the surface seems like, oh, that's incredibly straightforward. But of course, there's a bit more to it because the
Hmm.
way the winner is decided will alter how you play this. The losing team has their of each round will have their diamond tally announced, how much they put in the jar, not what they have left. However, the winning team has their diamond count remain anonymous, so the losing team won't know how much they won by. After 5 rounds, the team with the most points wins the main match. But here's the thing, the player in that team with the most diamonds remaining in their personal locker becomes the overall winner. So you've got this sort of conflict going on. And as always, the winner will get 2 tokens of life. However, David Tennant tells us if there's a draw, each player in the winning team will receive a token of life. I did notice a few things here. First of all, that they'd have their little animations to show this all
Hmm.
playing out. The animation only illustrates what happens if all 3 players draw, not what happens if 2 players have the most and
I
one
think
has
because
less. But
yeah, I think too. It's obvious those two get it, so it just
yeah,
showed the. I noticed that also, but
yeah. The winner will also receive 1 garnet and an extra garnet for every diamond they still have. And the player in the losing team with the fewest diamonds faces the death match. And even, David then spells out the dilemma for us. To win the game, your team needs to deposit the most diamonds, but to win overall as an individual, you need to have deposited fewer than anyone else. So you have to weigh things up and perhaps be deceitful, which some players in this game will never do. Yeah, therefore, it's a real game of not just calculations and guesswork, but yeah, perhaps a bit of trust or bluffing.
or at
Um,
least it should be.
yeah, it should
To
be, yeah.
I mean, I'm jumping in a moment too soon here, just before you're about to announce the teams. So I'll go ahead and do it if you don't mind. So the white team has the three actual gamers of Charlotte, Ken, and Ben,
Yeah, by
and
complete luck.
yeah, and the red team has Allison, who is somewhat of a gamer,
Mm.
and then Bex and Bodalia. If this had been mixed up, like if Ben and Bex had been on the same team, it definitely would have been more interesting in terms of the scheming
Yeah, yeah,
because Ben would not have wanted Bex to be safe. Their
yeah,
little feud going on.
yeah. That's right. Yeah, I sort of thought this the whole game had a lot more potential for
Yeah.
interesting things to happen that kind of just don't because of the strategy that the white team go for. It's just that they couldn't have predicted that. It's just the way the game plays out.
Right.
They
Right. It's
they
just
try
the
and make it a bit more exciting in the edit in some places, but
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just the random draw of the teams, that
yeah,
Charlotte, Ken, and Ben are just like, well, we're not going to try to outdo each other. I mean, we'll be fine, and we'll just sail to this win here, and no problem. Uh,
Yeah.
Slight
Um,
problem, but but and the other three aren't gamey enough to game the system or even discuss it or remember what round they're in. So it just it became a much simpler game
yeah.
than it otherwise could have been.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny when they're picking the teams, the players all seem to claim that they're quite glad the teams are being decided randomly. And
Yes.
I'm sure some of them don't mean that. They're like, "Oh, this is great. It'll just be random. It's not about fit." But yeah, think some of the game players would have rather picked their teams. But hey, it works. Well, seems like it works out for three of them. It actually
Yes.
doesn't.
Yes.
There's just before the team split off and get going, Bex also delivers this hilarious classic line. After the rules are explained, she says, "It all gets strategic now." And I thought, no, it's Bex, it's been strategic for the past 5 episodes.
Not for
And then
her.
yeah. And she has a moment, a sort of like Mev confessional moment. She repeats what David Tennant just told us almost word for word. I think
Mhm.
the editors need to at least pretend that she's here for a reason and that she knows what's going on. She's literally just repeating what David Tennant said. Um, so, I did want to rant, not rant. I just want to make a point briefly and move on and then not address it again. You know, maybe you were thinking this too, David. We've said that the first three players who pick the balls out the bag,
Mhm.
yeah, it's Ken, Charlotte, Ben, it's White. I believe this is just pure luck. I know there will be people online claiming it's rigged, it's fixed. No way did this happen by chance. We've talked about this a little bit before on the pod. I'll address it one more time here. I think, in my opinion, if enormous media company Banijay was caught rigging a game with a huge cash prize at stake, they would face legal repercussions, potential lawsuits, fines. The damage would just not be worth it to them. They'd take a hit to their credibility. And again, there are in UK TV and in US TV as well, there are really strict conditions in place around game shows and quiz shows and prizes. You can't rig these shows without facing really serious consequences.
Mhm.
And there are hundreds of staff working on these shows, hundreds of crew members, hundreds of people in development. I don't believe for a moment that none of them have leaked the fact that things were rigged and fixed. I just refuse to believe that
Well,
that's the case.
and the other thing is, we already talked about this. It would have been a lot more interesting with different teams.
Yeah, so why rig it this way? Yeah.
Right. If you wanted it to be more fun and more interesting, you put Ben and Bex on the same team.
Yeah.
You don't make it a situation where it seems obvious that one team is going to steamroll the other.
hmm Even though they don't.
Right. I mean, but if this is your plan,
Yeah, yeah,
you
exactly.
know, and I'm sure there's some conspiracy theorist out there who says, well, that's because they wanted the bad players out, so that only the good ones would be there at the end. They wouldn't have cast them then.
Yeah,
These are the same people. If they didn't want those people there, they wouldn't have put them in the cast.
yeah, yeah, you're right. And also, you said they would have put Ben and Bex together. I think if they were deliberately playing with the teams, they probably would have kept Ken and Charlotte apart because, I mean, I reckon they are this is very
Yeah,
subjective,
the
but the
front
two best
runners.
players. Yeah, the front
Yeah.
runners. So anyway, so we've got our white team, we've got our red team. They split off. It's time for some strategizing ahead of round one. It's funny because Charlotte and Ken immediately say, I think we've got this. Like they know they're the strong
Yes.
players.
Well, and I have to say, it's funny because Ben pointed this out, just the day before, or last week, the last episode, uh, Ken was telling Charlotte, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, suggesting that they're weaker or naive players or whatever. No, no,
Hmm.
no, I don't think that at all. And then fast forward to today, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I think we got that."
Yeah.
Really? Why do you think that, Ken? Can you please explain that in detail?
Yeah. I mean, I guess he would. I'm trying to put myself in Ken's mind. He would argue he didn't pick those other people to be in his group. They just naturally converged with
Yeah.
him, and yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, they reckon they're pretty confident. Ben, I'm doing it now. Ken, Ben, Bex.
Me too. That's why I have to pause before every time to make sure I get the right name there. I still sometimes don't.
Yeah. Ben even asks them, "Oh, why are you so confident?" And I thought, "Come on, Ben, you know why."
Well, I
Uh,
think that's why. I think Ben probably in that moment identified, wait a minute, that's a little hypocritical
yeah,
here, you
yeah.
know?
Ken tells us he feels he's pretty suited to this game.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of meets his strengths. In the other room, we've got Bex saying her only strategy she can think of is for all three of the players to agree to always deposit the same number of diamonds. And Bedalia and Alison agree. And Bedalia reiterates how honest he is, and they're all going to trust one another implicitly. However, we do see then Bex secretly suspecting Bedalia won't stick to his word because she thinks he's desperate to win, which I think he is desperate to win, and he even says so at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
episode. She suggests that she might accidentally put the wrong number of diamonds in the jar, and I think she's half joking, but I did think if they're showing her saying this, something is going to go awry in this.
Yeah, I said this last week. Beck's suggesting that Bodalia is dishonest. I mean, literally the most honest person there.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens in the next episode. But for now, he's literally the most honest person there,
Yeah. I don't know what her
suggesting that,
evidence is. Yeah.
yeah, suggesting that he's being dishonest and forgetting things when she can't even keep track of the rules. Neither can he. Um, and like, as we'll discuss, but just to point out, a few episodes ago during the color box game,
Yeah.
I can't remember if this was on the show or I only know this because of Ben's video, but she couldn't keep track of her own colors. She kept
Yeah.
forgetting what her colors were.
Yeah. In the episode, she messed up one of Indy's switches because she
Yeah.
wasn't sure what she had. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for her to say these things about anyone else, let alone Bedalia, it's just like, wow, you
Yeah.
know.
I guess we also saw a little bit of that from her last week too, when
Yeah. That's why,
Ben
yeah.
was like, "Hey, the other two don't want me to work with them," and she was sort of like, "Hmm, really? Is that what
Right.
really happened?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's what happened."
But
So,
also to Bedalia when he was talking to them, she was like, he's being so dishonest. And
yeah, yeah, strange. So we've got Ken and his team, and he's telling them that he thinks they should always just go for three, three, and three.
mm-hmm.
That was sort of my first instinct as well, is kind of just go all out early on, and I guess it didn't work out to be the best strategy, but that's what I wasn't surprised when he said this. Um, It also, by the way, I didn't say this, but even after David Tennant explained the rules, I still had several questions about the game that I couldn't understand. What Ken just said here answered one of them. But the questions that I was left with before we begin the game were, A, does the jar get emptied after each round? Do the diamonds reset? I guess no, because of the way Ken's talking about three each round rather than 9 or 10. I was still wondered what happens if a round ends with a tie between teams. And we kind of I don't think we do really find out. I think just no
I
one
think it's
wins
just a
it.
tie. Yeah, it's just a draw for that one, and whoever wins the most rounds overall wins. So if it had ended up being 2-2, tie, I
Yeah.
presume they would have had to either redo it or do another round or
Or go with
who.
who's got which individual's
Right,
got the most.
right.
Yeah. Um yeah, and I wondered what happened if David Tennant explains that the person who loses and faces the death match is the player with the fewest diamonds. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
well, what happens if the losing team all have the same number of diamonds? So there were a few little things
Yeah, he
I was
didn't explain
questioning.
that. I think because they know it's going to come up later, so why bother?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think dumping a bunch of rules at the beginning was something that was too confusing early in the season.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think they may have cut some of that because it'll be explained later. You don't need to worry about what happens in case of that tie. It'll be explained later.
Yeah, I realize I am being quite hypocritical because before I was like, it's too complicated. There's far
Yeah.
too many rules, and now I'm like, there weren't enough rules. I don't know what's going on. So I will put my hands up and admit that. Uh, so Ken explains his plan, 3-3-3. Ben's worried about this. He says he's risk averse. Meanwhile, in the other team, they're saying the complete opposite. They don't want to put high numbers in, and they settle on a really low amount for the first round. They want to go 1-1-2.
hmm
Bedalia offers, of course, to sort of be the sacrifice, I guess. He'll put in an extra one. Um, and I thought just moments ago they had all agreed to put in the exact same amount. So I don't know what changed their mind to go with the 1-1-2 rather than
Yeah.
1-1-1. We get a little moment of Bedalia explaining his strategy. He says they want to end the game with as many diamonds as possible. And I kind of think, I thought this a few times in the episode. I thought, why? I know you get extra garnets at the end if you've got for the more diamonds you've got left, but I sort of thought, well, so what? Like, it's not going to be a huge diff. You're probably going to end with maybe two, three,
hmm
5 garnets. I don't think that's worth it to lose the game to like sort of hoard diamonds because you think you might win at the end and you it might get yeah,
Yeah.
I thought Bedalia saying we have to end with as many as possible wasn't necessarily the best approach, but
I
hey.
mean, maybe he was thinking it was that to give him the benefit of the doubt that this is what would happen, that the other three, the white team would come on strong, dump all their diamonds early, try to
Mm,
win early, and then they'd have, the opportunity to beat them in the later rounds.
yeah, which is what happens.
Yeah.
So it's time for round one to properly go ahead. They gather in the atrium. Bedalia straight up just asks Ken, what's your strategy? What's your plan? I think is a joke. Um, so they head
I,
off
I
to
mean,
the.
it can't hurt. If
You never
someone
know.
asked Bedalia that, he might tell them.
Well, he,
So,
he would, and he did last time.
yeah.
So they head into the dealer room, and basically in round one, everyone sticks to their team's
hmm
plan. They do what they said. Ken, Charlotte, Ben, 3 each, and well, Alison and Bex put in 1 each. Bedalia puts in 2. So there's no surprises. David comes on screen, reveals the results, and we know the white team are going to win. And everyone is now told that the red team deposited 4 diamonds. I'm just still surprised they went so low. I thought that left them such a small chance of actually winning. But like you said,
I
maybe
mean,
they predicted the white team were going to go really high, but we didn't see much of that discussion. I don't know if that's what they were
yeah. I mean,
betting
if
on.
if they were going to go low, they should have gone with their original plan of like 0-0-0 or zero
Yeah,
zero 1 or something like that, rather than 4. But
yeah,
I mean, 4 at least beats 3.
yeah,
If someone else is deciding to go low, you just go slightly above low.
yeah,
So there is a reason for it if that's what they were doing.
yeah. If they thought the other team might do 1-1-1,
Right.
yeah, they're trying to beat it just by 1, maybe.
hmm
Ken pretends to be very intrigued and surprised by the results. They sort of all do this throughout the episode, that they don't want to give anything away. They don't want to
Right.
act surprised or unsurprised by any of the results. Time for round two. Vidalia just keeps repeating to his team. He keeps going, they put in more than us. Like he suddenly realized what the game is. It's so funny to me that he's like, they put in more. They put in more than us. I'm like, yep, that's how the game works. I don't know why he was so shocked by it. Uh, Allison,
Maybe he was convinced they were going to put in 1 each, and that
yeah,
his 1-1-2 strategy was just so powerful that it was going to do it in that
yeah,
round.
yeah. Allison suggests that they just go bold and put nothing in the next round.
hmm
Presumably, yeah, just to kind of sacrifice a round and focus on the final 3
Right.
rounds and win those. Maybe even confuse the opposing team. Uh, they decide against this though, seemingly because they think the opposing team might just do the same thing, I think is what they were getting at.
Which explains why don't they end up doing 1-0-0 this
Yeah,
time?
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So again, they're trying to read what Ken and Ben and Charlotte are going to do and one up them, literally one up them.
yeah.
They do a terrible job of figuring it out what they're going to do, and it ends up not mattering.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, yeah, it's kind of just such bad luck for the white team. It's just
There's a
the
lot of
rest.
accidental winning in this episode.
Yeah, it's. I mean, Ben described it as high risk, a high risk strategy, and it
Yeah.
was, and the rest didn't pay off. So their strategy beyond this is because they make their decision 0-0-1, and it's like they've got time left. So they
Yeah.
decide. I think it's Beck suggests, "Hey, let's just go and eavesdrop on them, or let's just distract them." And it made me laugh because I thought, great cerebral gameplay. Let's go and be noisy.
She said social is where her
Well,
gameplay is.
this is
So,
true, and I'm laughing, and she ends up winning.
yeah.
So maybe the laughs on me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, this is definitely what caused it. But yeah, Bex, pretends the other two wanted to talk without her. But the white team had already made their decision anyway, just
yeah,
like the red team, and they don't believe her.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you've accomplished exactly nothing.
yeah. I just think yeah they don't buy it.
Yeah.
Back to the atrium then. Time for the dealer room, and again, everyone does exactly what they had agreed to do with their teammates.
Hmm.
Results are revealed. Again, the white team win. It's not a surprise to us, the viewer. And they find out that the red team only deposited one. For round three, Ben does slightly worry about what may be about to happen. He says, while the other team, they've only deposited five so far, they could now just completely take over because they have so many diamonds left.
Right.
Alison is talking about, well, she says now it's just a prediction game, but it's always been just a prediction game. What are the other team going to do? Are they going to aim high? Are they going to aim low? Because they suspect the red team
Hmm.
will get desperate and deposit lots. The red team calculate that the highest possible amount of diamonds the other team could have left is 23 at a max. Bedalia wonders if that team is just going to put everything on the next round. And Bex goes, why? But because that's how you win the game, Bex. You put in the most diamonds. Like, I just don't know why she's still how it. Well, she's here because she keeps getting tokens of life from people.
Yes.
We cut back and forth between both teams, debating how high they're going to go. It feels quite tense. We don't know what the outcome will be. It looks like each team is aiming for roughly the same amount. So I did find this quite exciting to watch at this point. David Tennant calls the round over. We head into the dealer room. Alison begins. She puts in four. Ken, three, and we alternate back and forth between the teams.
Right.
Ken, three. Bedalia, four. Ben, three. We come to Bex, unless she does something wild, which she doesn't, she puts in five. So as a viewer, we know the red have won now. The white team can't beat that. And even the entire game, I thought they kind of just won the whole thing, which they do. Because white have nothing left now and they've just lost this round.
So
Uh
you're saying Ben, I didn't write down specifics, but you're saying Ben and Ken and Charlotte put in three. I thought they put in four because didn't they do 12 total this round?
maybe I've complete yes, sorry, forgive me.
Okay.
I've written the wrong numbers down, and I have written right after this, they deposited 12. Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
because
listeners.
that, again, citing to Ben's video, Ben says that's where they made their mistake was deviating from their plan. They
Hmm.
had planned to do 999 and instead they did
12.
9912
Yeah.
using up all of their diamonds there. And when red plays 13 and wins the round and they have zero left,
It's all
they're
over.
screwed.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. It's 4-4-4-4. Bex puts
Hmm.
in five, and we don't see what Charlotte does, but we know she doesn't have five to play with. So still, we know they've won
Right.
the round, and yes, I thought they've kind of just won the whole game now.
Yeah, their only hope was that red would put in zero one round.
Yeah. Yeah, I get they don't show us Charlotte. to maybe keep us in a little bit of suspense that she's lied to her teammates and she's going to
Yeah.
go rogue, but she doesn't. David
Yeah.
Tennant announces red team win, white deposited 12. Oh, Charlotte did go along with the plan. Yeah, they're screwed.
Hmm.
The white team again try not to react, even though they know it's game over for them. And they just have nothing. They go off and deliberate. They have nothing to deliberate on. There's nothing they can do. Their risky strategy failed. They're done. No
Hmm.
diamonds left to play with. The only way out of this, as Charlotte points out, is if the red team, for some mad reason, put in nothing for the last two
Yeah.
rounds and it's a
Yeah.
draw. Uh, so there's a possibility, but I wasn't like kind of sure that that's not going to happen.
Well, under normal circumstances, I would agree, but considering this team, it would have been a possibility.
I guess. Back in the red team, Allison suggests that the other team, she just sort of figures this out that they've been playing in multiples of three each round, which is
Hmm.
true. She just doesn't realize they've put everything in.
Right.
So they agreed to put in three each, which will leave them with three diamonds for or four diamonds, three or four for the final round. Um, so back in the dealer room, obviously the white team they walk in and they just put in nothing.
I just like how they hold out their hand. I am putting in nothing.
Yeah,
They're like showing the camera an empty hand. Yeah.
yeah. Alison puts in her three, Bex puts in her three, Bedalia sort of almost pretends to hesitate at his locker. Is
Yeah.
he going to do something wild? But of course, he goes along
Yep.
with the plan. He puts in three. Winners revealed. Red team win. White deposited nothing. But it does make Bedelia panic because he thinks, "Uh
Oh
oh,
yeah.
they planned this." No, they didn't. But he's like, "Oh man, they why didn't they put in anything? They must have stuff left. They're going to screw us over." Yeah, they return to the room, assuming that they just can't win the game. And so for a moment, I did think. Could the white team still win or draw? Probably not, but uh,
I mean, the
yeah,
funny thing is that they're, like Bex is stressing out so much, before this. It's like, we've lost. We've lost. Okay, you have three diamonds left total. Just put one in each and, you're fine. You either win or you lose. There's not really anything to stress about there.
yeah, yeah. It's again, I think maybe she just doesn't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
The red team, yeah, theorized for a little while about how many the white might have, but yeah, they're just going to put in all the diamonds and see what happens. And again, I think what all we're waiting for as viewers is we know the outcome, but it's just is someone in the red team gonna secretly not deposit the diamond and they won't become the loser, and that's what happens. So back to the dealer room again. White team empty-handed. I'm putting in nothing. Bex goes in and starts talking to herself. She doesn't know what she was meant to do. She's forgotten what did they talk about, and eventually she kind of figures out herself. Wait a minute, I could end up avoiding the death match if I just keep my diamond. We see Allison put hers in, Bedelia puts his in, and he tells us proudly he's never deviated from the plan and he's stuck to what his team agreed. Like, that's great, but it's it's just a
I
little
mean,
bit irritating that
does
you're
she really realize it? I don't think she does because she, we see them have a conversation beforehand
yeah,
where they're like, we just put them all in and that's that.
yeah, we'll all get a token of
And
life if we
and
win.
Bex is like half paying attention, chewing her hair or twirling her hair in front of her face or something, and says, "Yeah, yeah," and then gets in there and she's like, "We didn't discuss this. We didn't discuss this. I don't know what we're supposed to do." Well,
Yeah,
it wouldn't make sense for me to, put in all of them. That'd be daft. So no, I'm putting in zero. So I guess, yes, she sort of realizes it, but she only realizes it in the context of having forgotten the last 15 minutes,
yeah,
like
yeah,
wiped from her memory.
yeah. I think she just zoned out, and I don't know, maybe Allison and Bedelia were talking so much theory that she just switched off. Uh, so yes, we've got we cut to like an ad break, a commercial break with Beck still trying to figure
Mm-hmm.
out what was she supposed to do, or at least she's pretend. I did wonder if it's all fake for the cameras. I kind of don't think it is in the end though. And we
So
she.
Another little bit of insight from Ben's video. He doesn't know either. He
Mm.
says he's gotten conflicting answers from Bex.
Okay.
Um, but from what we saw, I think if she did it on purpose, we would have seen a confessional later of her
Yeah.
saying, ha 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 ha, I did it on purpose. Because
Yeah.
that's a lot more interesting than I totally forgot.
Yeah. I forgot and I've won by luck.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, Vidalia, he did what he was supposed to do. And yeah, what I was thinking was, he's talking about it's great that he was honest and he stuck to the plan. And he seems like again, a very nice person, but I just want him to, for a minute, realize you're not a bad person by playing to win, by being sneaky. Like, it's like the traitors. It's a game. It's okay
Well,
to lie. It's not a big deal. It's not
well,
real life.
yeah, I think we should point out apparently, I was told this by someone else. I have not checked it out. So this is a secondhand knowledge. Apparently, Bodalia has started doing some of his own videos too.
Okay.
And in one of those, he said he does not like playing board games at all.
Yes, you mentioned this. Yeah.
And yeah, I mentioned it to you, not on the
Yeah,
podcast
yeah.
before. Yeah. Just in case anyone was confused, it was like, he did when? Am I having a Bex moment? Um, but yeah. So do you think that like if you play Monopoly and you charge someone rent for landing on your space, that makes you a bad person?
Right.
If you're playing sorry and you sorry someone and send them back to the start, are you a bad person? I, he might. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And again, we mentioned in a previous episode that some of the players like Bedelia, it seems like they were cast. They were sort of sought out by the casting team as just maybe interesting people. He's got a bit of a presence. He's been on TV before, so he probably didn't apply as a
Right.
game player who wanted to win Genius Game,
Yeah.
which is frustrating for us.
Yeah.
So the winners are announced. We still don't know what Bex ended up doing in the end. They didn't. They kept it from us. Red team wins. Yes, we know. They can't quite believe it. And then David Tennant reveals what the red team members have left in their lockers, and it comes on the screen with a 101, and it takes Bex even a moment to realize that her total is different. Like she sort of almost doesn't read the screen properly, and then has a
Well,
moment.
and Bodalia, neither of them. It literally takes Charlotte to explain to them what has happened. The two of them don't understand. And
Yeah,
Charlotte's like, no, Bex, you won. Your whole team won, but you're the only one who's immune.
yeah.
And they don't understand even that simple fact.
Yeah, but Dahlia, yeah, he's totally confused about who's actually won and what's happened. We then get a flashback, which, like another one that we had before, I think is kind of pointless. It just shows us
Yeah.
what we've already seen, really. The team
Yeah.
seeming to agree to put in everything, but Beck's just not really paying attention, and she's trying to and I think we see that moment from the beginning where she's like, maybe I'll forget to put something in as a joke. Um,
Yeah.
Bex tries, she's convincing everyone it was a mistake, it was genuine, I didn't mean it. But Dahlia and Allison aren't really buying it. They both say that they trust her a little less now. And even Ben says he's not really buying this act. Uh,
Yeah. I do think it's funny that everyone presumes she did it on purpose because she really did just seem to forget. It was a dumb move, not a smart move.
yeah,
And they should know considering the things she's forgotten in the past, like in the block light up game.
yeah.
This is you. Yeah, it's not a smart strategic move. And this is where, if they had something of her
Hmm.
saying, haha, I got them, this is where it would have come up.
Yeah, yeah,
But it doesn't because it's not there.
yeah.
And now, do you still want her? I mean, not that they're going to have to worry about teams moving forward, but do you still want someone like that on your team? No, you don't want someone who can mess up, as those two found out.
Yeah.
Well, as one of them found out. But it's so frustrating to me
Yeah,
that, well, and I'm just watching it. Imagine being there and being like, okay, so you won by accident.
yeah, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, really annoying. David Tennant tells Bex that she now has to choose the deathmatch candidate from the losing team. Uh, the There's a really funny moment that the red team go off to the room to discuss this. I'm not sure why. And well, I guess they don't want the other
Hmm.
team to hear anything they say about them. And Bex asks Ken to come with her. And he's just like, no, I'll stay here, thanks. It's really weird. In the room, so it's kind
She's
of
u-
obvious, I think,
she's
she's
used
not
to
going
him
to pick
telling her
him.
what to do.
Well, yeah, she's like, I need your advice. In the room, she's still insisting she made a mistake, and Bedalia begs her for the token of life that she's won. He says, I gave you one yesterday. He suggests, like, Alison's safe. She's done so well in two death
Right.
matches now. No one's going to pick her as their opponent, little does he know. And back in the atrium, Ben, he's pretty sure he's going to get picked. And Bex comes back. He does get picked.
So a couple of things. One, yeah, Allison should have put up a fight here more. She probably still would have lost. But to just agree, yeah, nobody's going to pick me. Look at who the other options are. I understand you've won two death matches already,
Hmm.
but it was more like the people you faced lost both of those death
Yeah,
matches. It
yeah.
wasn't like you showed any stellar amount of scary skill other than the literal stare. Uh, it you it was. And I'm not disparaging her. I'm just saying she's not one of the three in the other room. I'm
Hmm.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the other thing that's interesting, again from Ben's video, is since they didn't really have anything to talk about, they just went in there, and this was when he revealed the amount of studying that he had done
Mm,
to Ken and Charlotte. Now we didn't see any of that, but
yeah,
he revealed like everything in that time frame. I think mostly because if if by chance Ken or Charlotte were picked, it would probably mean they wouldn't go after him,
yeah.
knowing that he had done all this studying.
Yeah.
But it would have been interesting to see some of that. But I think that's kind of the meta gaming that they production often doesn't like to show.
Yeah, I guess they don't want, yeah, someone on screen saying, I've watched the other version of this show and I've
Right.
figured things out. Yeah, it might sort of, yeah, ruin the illusion a little bit. Then, yeah, Ben gets picked. Bex gets her tokens of life, and she gives her extra one to Bedalia,
Hmm.
which I'm not really surprised at. It's Ben's turn then to choose his opponent, and he picks Allison. And I'm not surprised.
No, me neither.
Yeah, he's not going to turn Ken and Charlotte, and he knows not just because he was in their team, but he knows they're really strong players. So,
Right.
like you said, Bex asks Ben if she can sway his decision, and he says, "Yeah, give Alison the token of life." Like, and meaning, uh, then I'll pick Bedalia. It's
Yeah.
basically what he's implying. And she's saying, "Oh, I'll give you all my garnets," and he's just like, "Nope, no deal."
Well, yeah,
Uh,
for the exact reason that we talked about, I believe it was last episode where we talked about, yeah, the Garnets are all going to the winner at the end anyway.
yeah,
So you giving them to him now is absolutely meaningless.
yeah,
You could pile all the Garnets on, but it comes down to the sort of thing we discussed with the traders. Do I go for the shield or do I go for the money? No, you always go for the shield because if you lose the game, it doesn't matter how much money is in the pot.
yeah, exactly.
And so, no, he's not going to pick a more difficult opponent, which might cause him to lose the game and not have any money at the end.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, before they, yeah, they're at a stalemate. Ben's not going to change his mind.
Mhm.
Before they go into the death match and we find out what it is, there is a funny moment of Alison just saying to Bex, "Would have been handy if you'd put the other diamond in."
Yeah.
So the death match is called Picture Hunt. We have our rules explained. Took me a moment to figure it out, but as soon as it starts playing out, actually, it's not too complicated, I don't think.
Yeah.
Uh,
And this is a classic, apparently.
okay. Each player has, well, actually, I thought each player had their own grid, but it's not. There's one grid of 16 letters in front of both of the players.
Hmm.
Each letter is associated with a simple picture or shape. If it flips over, there's a picture on the other side. Each player has a sort of avatar, a token literally on a conveyor belt. At first, I thought it might all be on a screen, but it is a real prop. And the conveyor belt is lined with these pictures. They're basically trying to use their memory to, well, learn what's on the other side of some of the letters and memorize the pictures as they go. Uh, if they can do this and figure out what letter matches the next picture on the conveyor belt in front of their piece, they'll work their way up the conveyor belt towards the finish line by naming the letter that matches the picture. But if they get it wrong, they fall, the conveyor belt moves the other way, they fall further back and eventually fall off the edge. So you can kind of win by getting to the front or by the other person falling off.
Right.
Ben is worried because we've seen Alison do really well in memory games before, so this is, causing him a little bit of concern. And the deathmatch begins. Ben chooses to go first because he thinks it will give him an advantage, but actually something weird happens. He gets his first letter wrong, and Alison just copies him. She just picks the exact same letter. It took me a moment to realize that it was deliberate. Like I thought, why did she do that?
Yeah.
But then she explains, no, well, every time he reveals a letter, I'm going to learn something. Every time I reveal a letter, well, I don't want him to learn anything new, so I'm just going to pick the same as him
Hmm.
so that he can only rely on his own moves. And even if they both continuously get everything wrong, he chose to go first, meaning he'll fall off the conveyor belt first. Um, so so at this point, I thought, oh, this is not going to turn out well for Ben. They
Yeah.
continue
I mean,
taking their
it's
turns.
purely luck based at this point. It's a good counter strategy.
Mm,
Ben did not expect her to know to use this counter strategy.
yeah.
Um, and, whether she had seen it somewhere or stumbled on it herself or whatever, it's a very good, counter. And yeah, I think it's, slightly better than chance that he finds his correct letter before falling off the end,
Hmm.
but it's still not great odds.
Yeah, yeah. And he gets the first six wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and Allison copies all six of them. And finally, he does get one correct, like you said, by chance, really.
Yeah.
Although maybe at some point that was going to happen. It's the letter P, and that means that he gets to go again. Um, this I don't know if this is the moment or if it's a little bit later that also Bex is just like, what? Why is he going? Like she doesn't get why he's going again, and Ken's like, it's okay, dear. When you win, you get to go again. And she's like, oh, okay. Um, I mean, it's kind of funny. Uh, but this time, Ben uses her tactic against her. He turns the tables and he deliberately gets the next one wrong. So she realizes what he's doing. She then gets three wrong in a row. Um, but she uncovers a letter that's going to help Ben move forward
Mm-hmm.
two places again. He just keeps going though with his strategy of deliberately getting it wrong so that she doesn't find out anything new. Right as she's about to fall off the edge, she also gets lucky. She manages to just guess by chance, saves herself for now, but gets the next letter wrong after that. And I think here we see her for the first time maybe get a little bit flustered.
Mm-hmm.
You said she's always got this stare. She's
Yeah.
good at sort of psyching the other player out. But yeah, she realizes that this is just not going her way. He gets one right next, I think, by just lucky guessing again.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think there's a moment he doesn't want to be quite so risky, so he gains at least one more space forward. It comes to a point where they actually both need the exact same letter for the blue raspberry shape, as Ben calls it. He deliberately gets it wrong again, comes back to Allison with one more shot to save herself, but luck isn't on
Well,
her side.
he gets it wrong because she had gotten it wrong first, looking for that same
Oh,
shape.
oh,
And so he knew where it was.
oh, he
She
just,
should have known where it was if she had remembered it,
okay.
but she has lost track. So he didn't want to remind her at that
Mm,
point.
yeah, okay. So she gets the final one wrong
Mm-hmm.
and falls off the conveyor belt.
Yes.
So Ben's one, they have a hug. It's pretty, they don't all. It's not incredibly dramatic and tense and people hating each other in this game. He looks a little bit upset, but he's quite proud of himself, and he
Mm-hmm.
did play well, I felt. Uh, Bex is, a bit upset too because she kind of helped lead to this outcome for Allison. They say their goodbyes in the
Kind of
atrium.
helped. I mean, she's in the lounge. Ken is comforting her, saying it's not her fault. And I'm like,
It
yeah,
is.
it literally is her fault. It is 100%. And she says the same thing. The one time that Bex and I agree on something, she's like, no, it literally is.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and it's like, yeah, it literally is.
Well, it's her fault she ended up in the match, but
Right.
she
That's,
she did lose it herself. Uh,
yeah, but
so Allison passes her garnets to Ben. That's the way it goes. And it means there are only five players left now. Uh, we sort of finish with Bedalia saying he feels he's the most all-rounded player, and he says he'll do whatever it takes to win. And I thought, really? Will
really,
you? Will you
yeah,
though?
yeah.
Uh, we get a little preview of next week's episode. We've got David Tennant telling us that three people will go home next, including one in the main match, followed by a three-way death match. So the finale episode is just going to be one-on-one.
Hmm.
And we get another moment of Bedalia saying, I feel a little bit guilty, but if I win, who cares? I thought, well, well, well. Is Bedalia going to betray someone? Are they tricking us? I'm intrigued to find out what he's going to do. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah,
so
he might like use the bathroom and not put the toilet seat down or something for the women. I mean, that's, probably going to be what it is that he
could
feels
be.
guilty about there.
Yeah. So that's our episode six. Only two episodes left. I have usually we've got some questions from listeners. I've got not really questions, just a couple of interesting emails from people. So I'll go through those, and then maybe David, if you have any final thoughts in the episode, we can
Hmm.
work through that. First of all, Kevin, who emailed at the beginning of the ep, uh, he had something else actually to mention that I thought was interesting. Kevin said. I think you'll like Devil's Plan more. We've talked about this on the podcast before. I still haven't
Hmm.
watched it, but I definitely will. It's a Korean show along the same lines as Genius Game, and it's on Netflix.
Yes.
I think you'll like Devil's Plan more, as the contestants are more focused on winning the games rather than choosing a winner by alliances. Partly because their version of garnets are more important. They're used in games more. Plus, they all live together. It's more of a sort of Big Brother type house. They don't, go off at the end. They all live together and interact in between the games, and they use garnets to plan things before going into the arena. That, and I think the Korean contestants are all cast for their intellectual ability rather than just TV potential. And they don't all have the British mentality that games should be played honourably, even though the rules encourage you to lie. So there's maybe another reason to go and watch Devil's Plan and get a bit more
Hmm.
real, tense gameplay out of it, perhaps. I'm looking forward to it. Uh, the final two little messages I'm going to read, they were really nice and I thought they were funny and I thought you would appreciate them, David. We must be good travel companions because, first of all, we've had an email from Jane who says, I'm so glad I found you on Pocket Cast, which I switched to after Google Podcasts died a death, RIP. As my husband hates things like The Traitors and Million Dollar Secret, so I love having you to listen to and chew things over with in a one-sided way as I go for my walks in sunny California. So there we go. I think Jane said she is British but lives out in California, so she's listening to us on her walks. Thank you, Jane. And similarly, kind of, one of the YouTube comments is from Kirsty. I think Kirsty's Scottish. She says, I'm on an overnight bus from Glasgow to London, and I've downloaded a bunch of episodes of The Trader to keep me company on my way down. Oh yeah, she says, from your fellow Scot, thank you for all your work in making the podcast. So I hope,
Very
Kirsty,
nice.
your
Yes.
journey to London, that night bus is, it's a long drive on the coach. So I hope we kept you company.
How long is that?
On the coach, it's something like 12 hours, 12 or 13 by car, like 9 hours. Yeah. So, um, David, overall, episode six, how did you feel about it? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it was undoubtedly, to me, the best episode of the season in terms of understanding what was happening and reducing the frenetic running around. Um, but it also showed to my mind why there's no way Bex or Bedalia should win. Like Allison said in her final words that Bex was responsible for her demise, but she knows it's a mistake. And I kind of said this earlier, but to me, that makes it worse.
Yeah.
If I lost to someone by mistake, like you didn't beat me because you were smart, you beat me because,
You got lucky.
yes,
Or
thank you.
yeah, made a lucky
Yeah,
mistake.
yeah. I, it's one thing to lose to savvy gameplay. It's another to lose because someone did something dumb and you had no control over it.
Hmm.
And it's just, I mean, to me, it's kind of like, playing poker and you turn over your hand and they say, "Oh, well, that beats my hand. I only had two pair, sevens and sevens." And you're like, that's quads. What do you mean two pair? That's quads. You don't even know how you're playing poker and you just beat me by accident,
Hmm.
you know? So yeah, that would frustrate me to no end if I were Allison. And even as a viewer, it did. Um, you know, Bex and Bedalia can't even figure out the rules. They have to be reminded what round they're in. They don't know when they've won. They don't know how they've won. They're forgetting simple things. It just doesn't look good.
Hmm.
And so that part is incredibly frustrating. And I hope they both get knocked out next episode.
Yeah. I'm sort of not surprised to hear you say that.
Yeah.
If I was playing devil's advocate, I would say at least one thing that might console you is even if Bex hadn't made that mistake at the end, she still would have won with her team. You know, she still would have got a token of life.
Oh, right.
So at least it didn't stop her
It
from exiting the game.
Yeah, it ends up being better outcome, I think, for us, the viewer, because it's better to have Ben and Ken and Charlotte in there than it is. Again, nothing against Allison, but I think I just personally like the gameplay of Ben and Ken and and Charlotte better than that of Allison, and so I think from that standpoint, it will make it better for the next episode or
Hmm.
two.
Yeah.
But that doesn't take away, that it shouldn't have happened that way.
Yeah. My overall thoughts are kind of just echoing what I said last week. I think that, like you, David, I find it frustrating that Bex is on the show just because I don't feel she belongs in the cast, as nice as she seems. And Bedalia, likewise, I think he was cast for other reasons. So
Yeah.
it's tough when it's called Genius Game, when you've got people who maybe didn't really apply for that like some of the others did.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
not quite at that level there. I mean, at least Allison, I think, uh, she thinks in a different way, maybe not the same as some of the others, but like she has a series of books out, of
yeah.
crime books, crime novels out. Apparently, the a group of them met up with her at a book launch in
Oh,
October,
great.
which tells you how long ago this was filmed.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
think Ben referenced something like, we filmed this a year ago. There's no hard feelings.
Yeah.
And we had talked early in the season on the podcast about how this has been banging around there for a little while.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, that's right. We knew about the show well over a year ago and kind of just been waiting, and
Yeah.
we reckon it's just been pushed back because they knew that maybe it wasn't that great.
Hmm.
Yeah, my other final thought is simply I've already said it. I liked the game in this. I could follow it. I knew it was happening. I much preferred it to last week's episode, which I found quite tedious to watch unfold. So yeah, this was one of the better episodes for me. I did still like the opening episode of the whole season, actually, with the vaults. And
Hmm.
I liked Lights Out, the game with the colored cubes. I liked being able to follow where the cubes were and who had what and who could potentially lie about what they had as they did. Uh, so that's our episode 6. We are almost there. 2 episodes left of this season. Before I say a little more about that, David, where can we find you online and what kind of content are you creating?
Well, I am all over social media and usually reality TV podcasting on a little bit of a break, other than this one right now. Survivor 48 ended last week. As I mentioned in the last podcast, which was only a few days ago for us here, our Why Blank One podcast is available on Rob Has a Podcast or WeKnowSurvivor.com. I also did. Now the big thing in Survivor is the Survivor 50 cast was announced, and it's returning players. And so even though we still have Survivor 49 to do in the fall, I think CBS and Survivor production realized these names are all going to get spoiled anyway because everyone's leaving to go to Fiji.
Hmm.
So we might as well get some of the social media hit for it. We might as well announce it. And they did. Now, the funny thing was the spoilers still had the list before CBS announced it. And it was right. But they at least had the big push and everything else. And I did a short, like under 15-minute video on what I thought of that on my YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, where I am at David Bloomberg TV. Normally, I do very short videos on there on those three things for Survivor or Genius Game, or now I'm doing a lot of flashbacks and look aheads. Like, here's a flashback to this player who's going to be on 50.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can still find me doing all of those again on those video sites at David Bloomberg TV, or you can find all my accounts at Linktree/David Bloomberg, or directly on Blue Sky as at David Bloomberg.
Great. And before I tell you all how you can keep up to date with the podcast and get even more involved, a couple of things I wanted to mention. First of all, just today, there's I think just today, a trailer. Well, today when we're recording, a trailer for Traitors India has appeared online. It's going to be showing on Amazon Prime now. I don't know if that's worldwide. Uh, Someone has told me it will be available in the UK, and it looks like it will be part Hindi, part English, so the Hindi parts will be subtitled, so could be
Mm.
fairly accessible if you're an English speaking person. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about it on the podcast. The whole series is due to drop on the 12th of June, or at least begin on the 12th of June, so not too far away for that. One more thing. Wanted to update long-time listeners on a project of mine that, well, not a project of mine, a project I was involved with that I've mentioned on the podcast before. Last year, I worked on a short film for Channel 4 here in the UK. It's called The Dead Don't Care. It's available to watch on YouTube. It's a Scottish comedy about a spiritual medium who actually has a real gift. Think the movie Ghost, but set in Glasgow. I'm mentioning it because, firstly, it's just been nominated for a Royal Television Society for Scotland Award, which is really incredible, quite a big deal. And secondly, because I was checking out the YouTube comments on the video just the other day, and it looks like at least one Tradar listener took my advice and watched it. So there was a comment saying, "Hey, I'm here because Matthew recommended this."
Yeah.
So that was really nice. And I thought I'd mention it again for new listeners. So if you, it's a 5 or 6 minute short film, really funny. If you search The Dead Don't Care on YouTube, it'll show up really near the top of your results. And if I remember, I'll put a link here in the episode description too. Now, to make sure you're
I
up
was
to
just
date.
looking on Prime on my phone here to see if I could find
Oh,
Traders
Traders
India.
India.
I'm not seeing anything
Okay.
in the US, but if it's not on yet, it may not pop up,
Mm,
but it's hard to say.
yeah. We'll
So
investigate, try and find out as much as I can, and share it with the listeners. And I'll be sharing it on social media. The best way you can do that is follow on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Tradear Podcast. You can leave comments there. You can email me at thetradeartpodcast@gmail.com, like Kevin did today, and I was reading out his comments. It's also really helpful to subscribe, leave a nice review on whatever platform you're using. And finally, if you've been listening all this time and you're enjoying the podcast and you want to help it keep going, you might want to be generous and give us a garnet and visit
Wow.
coffee.com/Matthew Keeley. Well, a tiny shaving of a garnet. Uh, okay,
I mean, if they want to
not
give
a
a whole
grand. I
garnet,
mean,
then
it, yeah,
that's great. But yeah,
yeah. So that's ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. Thank you for listening. We will be back next time, probably within 24 hours of the next show airing this time. So it'll be with you really soon to analyze the penultimate episode of Genius Game UK. Until then, keep us on your radar.
and stay geniusy.